business owner? Entrepreneur? Want to learn how online marketing can improve your business?
Your questions.
Our advice.
This is Not a Real Job.
Welcome to episode 84 of Not a Real Job, a podcast that is all about turning the things you love to do into the things that make you money. I'm Joel Kelly, and I do marketing stuff up in snowy Canada.
And I am Chris Van Patten, and I make internet things currently in sunny Barcelona.
What's the weather like over there today?
It's not as warm as it has been, but it is upper 50s, low 60s, and sunny, which is nice. Yesterday was kind of rainy and gray and gross, and today is bright blue skies and all that. So,
Oh, man.
you know, all things considered, it's pretty nice.
I could live with that. It is 30 degrees and snowing here. Like, actually, between a mix of snow and freezing rain, which is pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah, that sounds lots of fun.
Yeah, I guess we got another like five inches or so of snow. I don't really know. Where the way our apartment building is set up, like where it is on our block, we can't, like the back of the building, our like deck doesn't really get any snow on it. So we don't really know how bad things are till we leave. Looking at the radar map, let's see here. Jesus, I guess it was pretty bad. We haven't gone outside, so who knows?
Probably a good decision.
Total snowfall amounts of 15 to 35 centimeters are expected.
Good gravy. That's a lot.
Yeah, so that's how things are going here. So you're liking Spain. You're liking the Europeans. You like how they behave. You like the way they talk. You're on board with the whole European experience so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of drinking involved, which I think I'm still adjusting to.
Mm-hmm.
Longtime listeners will know that my tolerance is below average. But even so, it's good. I'm sleeping in later than I do back in the States. Relaxing a little bit more, but yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm excited because
I think the question everyone's kind of waiting for is, are you ready to renounce your American citizenship yet or not?
Joel,
Mm-hmm.
I need you to take that back right now because America is the greatest country in the world. And how dare you?
You know, it's interesting. You only hear people say things like that if they've literally never been anywhere else. That's what I love. Like, we have it in Canada too. Like, Canada is the greatest country in the world. Like, everyone believes I'm sure there's some people who live in some countries going, no, this country kind of sucks. But for the most part, I think, especially I don't know. But for the most part, everyone thinks that where they live is the most unique, special, and amazing place ever. And then, one trip abroad and you start to think maybe people are just people. But no.
Sure, that's fair.
But you guys have manifest destiny and American exceptionalism. You have all those things that God gave your country and didn't give to everyone else. So I understand that in some ways, especially when it comes to, being blessed by the divine, you guys are winning. But I'd say, honestly, apart from that, I think I'm going to say room for improvement.
Sure. And that's fair. It's interesting because being parts of the nomadic traveler, digital worker community, you do get a lot of people who, or certainly proportionally more people who are sort of interested in alternate citizenships and passports and, renouncing citizenships for tax advantages and all these different things. So it's something that, I know you asked this question as a joke and I'm giving you a serious answer, and I'm sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is something that a lot of these ideas I hear about and I'm exposed to a lot. But all things considered, I'm pretty aware of the benefits of being a U.S. citizen, and I certainly don't want to give those up anytime soon. So yeah, that's where I stand on that issue.
Is that the free guns?
Yeah, it's mostly the free guns, the reality show eligibility.
That's got to be the big one.
And It's a good one, and also something about steak.
One day you too may dance with a star.
Indeed, one day I may be America's Idol.
Hmm. Well, fingers
Sure.
crossed and good luck. But overall things are going well. You don't regret it. You don't you know
No, no.
you're still happy with having made the decision to flee all your responsibilities and backpack around Europe.
Well, see, it's mainly the snow that I was freeing,
Yeah.
or freeing myself from. So hearing you talk today has really reinforced my decision, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking to a friend last night who they're going to be listing their house soon, and it's like, honestly, when we've been very casually looking for, maybe we're going to move, maybe we're going to buy a house. So these friends of ours who are going to be listing their house, their house is the one we've used to kind of judge other houses we've looked at. Like, well, it's not like theirs, and that's the one we really love. Anyway, it turns out they're going to be listing theirs, so we're thinking about why don't we just buy their house? So last night, that was like, oh man, this is the best decision. Let's go to the bank. Let's get some pre-approval on our mortgage, find out how much we can get. And then waking up this morning and seeing the snow, listening to the siding of our apartment building get ripped off by the wind and snow, we're like, no, maybe not. Maybe we just need to leave here forever. Like, really, we're gonna settle in this nightmare frozen hellscape? Maybe not.
Yeah. Now, I mean, listen, I have said on this show before that I very much enjoyed my time in Halifax, but I also like the idea of you moving to someplace warm. I know you've talked about Miami, and then getting a guest bedroom and letting me live there rent free forever.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like a good plan.
I can't imagine a single issue with it.
No faults whatsoever.
But now, I don't mean to pressure you here, but you did suggest that you had a topic you wanted to discuss on today's show.
Sure, I do. I do indeed. So I mentioned last week, you may remember Joel, and if you don't, then I'm sorry.
Yep.
But I mentioned that I'm building a new product, and so I still don't want to give out too much, and I can kind of go into a little bit of why that is in a moment when I explain this topic.
It's buttdisease.org, and it's just what to do when you've got diarrhea. It's an app.
Well, it's actually just a redirect to the WebMD page about the butt disease, but
where you find out that diarrhea is fatal.
Yes, it will kill you. No, so this is actually, so it's a product in the travel space, and it is sort of a service, a chat type service. But basically, so I mentioned last week that I launched sort of a very quick prototype with the people that I'm living with here. Just a very simple sort of hacky, approach to test it out. Validated the idea, or at least in the sense that it worked. It sort of accomplished what I had in mind. But the problem was that not the problem, but I started building a normal version of this, an actual web app that people could sign up for and log in and do it, as opposed to before where I was, I was kind of piggybacking on another app to accomplish it. But I've been working on that for about 2 weeks now, maybe a little bit less. And sort of when I first conceived of how I was going to build this, it was going to be very simple. I'm going to base it on WordPress, which is something that I obviously know pretty well. I have a good idea. I had a good idea about the architecture in mind, so I sort of had it figured out. And I thought that this was something that I could accomplish in a week. Well, like I said, it's probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks now, and I still feel like I'm almost there. But I also recognize the fact that I felt like I was almost there for a week. And I think you might be familiar with this phenomenon as well. And I've heard sort of it referred to as the last 10%.
Yeah.
And the idea that the last 10% takes, 10 times as long as you think it will. And it's really it's an inability, I guess, to accurately estimate the scope of a project. Have you encountered this before?
Oh my God! But you're absolutely right. Like it's something we refer to all the time. It is. We can't even call it a phenomenon. It is just a thing. Like like you can't be surprised by it anymore if you've done enough as large scale projects. Everything
Hmm.
seems so simple for. I like to think of it. It's the 10% might be a little. I think when we refer to it as the last 10%, we might be giving ourselves a little too much credit for how much we've accomplished. I really think it's the last half. Like, for most projects, the first half, getting it to a place where it appears to be viable takes almost no time at all. And getting it to a place where it's legitimately viable to other people takes all the time. Like, I mean,
Well, I think that's the fallacy there, or maybe
mhm.
I don't know if fallacy is the right word, but I think in our brains, what we think of as 10% of a project, like you said, is more like 50%. But I think it's something that we do, but it's so dangerous, and I'm in that trap right now where you don't realize that 10% is 50%
Yeah.
until you're sort of in the middle of it.
Right. Yeah. You're totally right. Yeah. It appears on paper in your project timeline to be 10%, but it's in fact 50. Yeah, you're totally right. It's just a different way of, I was just saying in a different and less meaningful way. But I mean this applies to everything, like not just software, but I mean when I'm writing like a fiction piece, like my book that we've talked about a million times, like what to an outsider would appear to be the last 10% absolutely took half the time or potentially more. Like my first draft, which you would think is the bulk of the work, did not take very long in the grand scheme of things. Completely reworking it, rewrites, edits, like that's what took all the time in the world. And it's the exact, it is just the same way with software. Like getting it to a place where, okay, this is a thing doesn't take that much time. Getting it to a place where this is a thing that has value is all the time.
Now, I'm curious, like from your perspective, and I definitely, I have my own opinions. We'll go to get those in a second, but I'm curious why you think this is. Why do you think it is that we think in this way, or we have such a hard time fully appreciating the work that we put in, especially because I know, for myself, and I'm sure for you as well, like you've written a lot,
Mhm.
in your writing example, like you've written short stories, you've published a book.
Mhm.
I've certainly worked on dozens of WordPress projects, if not hundreds. Um, so, and yet every time, still years later, I still find myself encountering this problem. And I'm just curious, what do you think, what do you blame?
Well, I blame us as being big dumb apes who are always bad at statistics and bad at calculations. Like we are mammals. We're not computers. We're not rational. And I think it's almost like, and this is like all the parents out there are going to get mad at me for using this as example, I'm sure, because I'm going to ruin it. But it's almost like giving birth. Like it seems like the hard part is producing something new. So if it's a piece of software, it's going from no lines of code written to lots of code written. That seems like the main obstacle. Taking something that didn't exist before and making it exist, just like a story. Taking a blank piece of paper and turning it into a story feels like all the, going from conception to birth feels like all the work. Then turning that thing into actually something that has value to another person, because remember, value is imaginary. Value is completely fictional. The whole essence of value and worth is just how other humans appreciate something. So turning something that is just simply exists into something that other people can value is where all the effort goes in. But for us, the people who are actually doing it, it's the birthing, it's the conceiving, it's the actual taking nothing and making something that fills our whole essence, that fills all our attention. And then we realize, okay, we've got this thing. But for anyone else, and remember, we're making software, we're making stories, we're making books, we're making, paintings, we're making websites, we're making it all for other people. So once we realize that, okay, we've now got something, but it's still to the average person, nothing, that's where all the effort is. It's, taking a lump of carbon out of the ground isn't interesting until and that seems like the hard part, but then we have to refine it, then we have to make it beautiful, then we have to cut it, then we have to set it, and now we've got something we can sell. And that takes far more time than digging a piece of stone out of the ground. I think that's it. It's starting with nothing and having something feels like it's 90% of the work, but of course, to everyone else, and again, we're judging ourselves based on how other people feel and how they value things. That's where the real work comes in. And I really just do think we're going to forget that every single time because we're busy giving birth and not really thinking about the next 20 years.
Yeah, and I would sort of tack on to that and say, like, I think a big part of it is that, you know, say, I sit down and I say, I'm going to write a book. I think, like you said, like, you can write a book. Anyone, who's capable of writing can write a book, but, just putting words on paper, like, it's not the whole process. You have to, right, like you said, you have to edit it, you have to market it, you have to sell it. There are all these different parts.
Mm-hmm.
But because the original goal was, I'm going to write a book, like, we think very much in terms of the action of writing the book, or, in my case, like, I think of the action of building the website. I'm not thinking about, taking the website that I built and fixing the bugs that might come up. I'm not thinking about, preparing marketing materials in this case of this project, or doing PR. These are all things that are absolutely necessary, but because I think about it in the terms of, I'm going to sit down and build a website, I only think about the website building parts. I don't think about all the other bits and pieces that are, so essential as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You're focused on creation. And it turns out that creating something new isn't interesting to other people because new things appear all the time. Like, the fact that you've written a book is not interesting because you walk into a bookstore, there's over 100,000 new books in there. If it's a large chain, like, it's not interesting to your audience that you have created something unless you can make it valuable for them, and that's where all the work comes in. And I feel like there's a lot of probably artists listening to this right now and cringing and thinking we're completely belittling what it is to create and what it is to make something unique. But I mean, we're thinking about what it is to create something that other people will enjoy. And that's the work. If you get all the satisfaction in the world out of creation, well, then you're gold. Like, don't worry about what we have to say. But if what you're trying to do is make something that's valuable to other people, then you're in for a much tougher road.
Yeah, and that's what I think, if you look at somebody maybe who, for instance, paints as a hobby. My grandfather was an oil painter, but he didn't do it professionally. He did this, after he retired, as something for himself. And so for him, the process of creating the oil painting, like, that was it. And then he finished the oil painting and that was it. He didn't sell his oil paintings. He would frame them and give them to members of our family. We've got some hanging in my home upstate in New York, and, like, but that was it. He didn't have to worry about the other things. And if you're in that position, like, that's great. But for us, like we say at the top of every show, and only occasionally actually accomplish, we want to help you turn, these hobbies into jobs, or into, something that produces money for you, or makes it sustainable beyond just pure enjoyment. And I think this is such an essential part, because I think for people who, and I'm totally guilty of this, as I said at the top of the show with this project that I'm working on, like, it's so easy to forget that the thing that you love to do is not going to, I mean, like you said, I think putting it in terms of value is so important. Like, just because you can do this thing doesn't make it valuable to other people. And ultimately, if you want to turn your hobbies into jobs or revenue opportunities for you, and that feels a little gross to say revenue opportunities, but whatever, you have to realize that it's not going to be, the sunshine and roses of, painting your oil painting and then that's it. Because that's just, unless you're in some crazy random circumstance where, I don't know, where a gallery sees your work somewhere and picks it up, and it all just sort of happens without your control. Like, but that doesn't happen in real life. You have to do sort of everything beyond just the creation process.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to, remind everyone that we're not, when we talk about value, it's not necessarily money. Like we're not trying to yuck this up by making it all about cash. But what I want to remind you is that money is just the physical manifestation of an imaginary concept. Money doesn't mean anything either. It's all just built around what people value, what makes them smile, what makes them think interesting things in their heads. And we have attached a currency to that, a physical currency, but there's all kinds of other types of currency. There's attention currency, there's emotional currency, there's romantic currency. So everything you do that you show to other people has a currency attached to it. And that if you want to increase the currency that people will attach to that, whether that's their attention or their emotion or their romantic feelings or their spiritual feelings, that you have to think about how other people are going to receive it and value it. So it's not just about making we're not talking necessarily specifically about making something that people will pay money for. We're talking about making something that people will give something of themselves to acquire it, whether that is their attention or their feelings. So remember, all of these are imaginary concepts because we're big dumb apes who haven't made it very far off the African savannah. Like we're still attaching very, very fantastical and very, very what's the word? Very, very imaginary concepts to things. So what we're talking about is creating something new doesn't necessarily add value to other big dumb apes. So half the effort goes into making it shiny enough that another big dumb ape is going to think
do
it's
that.
cool.
Sort of to bring it back a little bit, if you can, look at things sort of in those terms, and as you start a new project, be very conscious of the fact that creating the thing is I don't want to say it's the easy part, but if you are a web designer, if that's what you're doing, you're creating a website, then yeah, creating the thing is an easy part. If you're the writer who doesn't, have a marketing or an editing background or any of that stuff, it is, relatively speaking, going to be the easy part. But I think part of, just to kind of go back again, like I think part of the reason that we underestimate the other stuff is because we want to overestimate the difficulty of what we do to make ourselves feel like we're doing more work than we're actually doing. Does that make sense?
God damn it. I still had my microphone muted while I said that. You know what, Steve? Leave it in that super, super rough cut where I unmuted my microphone. Everybody, yes, I'm an idiot. I was talking there.
Basically, what Joel said was that he wanted to move on to the Amazon Gear Picks, which is why I started talking about the Amazon Gear Picks.
That's exactly what I was saying.
What a screw up.
Oh, man. Stupid Joel.
I'm embarrassed for you. Anyway, so the Amazon Gear Picks is part of the show where we talk about stuff that we've bought from Amazon in the past that we like and we think you should buy too. And if you buy it through our links on our website, which is notarealjob.com, we get a little bit of a cut, and that helps us make the show better. What are you going to put in this week?
Well, so I intentionally did not read the Walter Isaacson Steve Jobs book because I heard that it was incredibly inaccurate from people who seem to know what they were talking about. But I've heard the opposite about this new book that I've pre-ordered called Becoming Steve Jobs, The Evolution of a Reckless Upstart into a Visionary Leader by Brent Schlender and Rick Tetzel, Brent S. and Rick T. Anyway, so this, according to John Gruber and others, this book feels like the most accurate biography of Steve Jobs. So I am excited to read it. So that's what I'm putting in. It's not out yet. It's coming out March 24th, which is still a few days away if you're listening to this. But you can pre-order it on Amazon, and the link will be at notarealjob.com/gear or in the show notes of this episode. What about you, Christopher?
Awesome. I will say that I did read the Walter Isaacson book, and it was fine if you took it with a grain of salt. So if you do, have some spare time and feel like it, then, it's enjoyable, but don't necessarily believe everything you read. Anyway, so like I said last week, here in Spain, they have Amazon, but I'm not using
Right.
it. So I'm dipping way back into the archives here on my Amazon account for something. And I am going to put in the Plantronics M50 Bluetooth headset. So it's a pretty simple little Bluetooth headset, pairs with your phone, and lets you talk wirelessly on your phone. I like this mainly when I'm trying to do calls with clients, because it lets me talk on the phone and still be able to type or take notes or things like that. Don't use it in public because you'll look stupid. But if you need both of your hands, it's a great way to go.
Now, can you get 2 of these and put one in each ear
No,
and look really cool?
I don't think so. Well, actually, you know what? It is reversible, so I guess technically you could do that. Um, yeah, so it's like it's $50 or something.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice,
absolutely.
nice.
But I ordered mine in April 2012, and it's still in great condition. It's rechargeable via USB, which I like.
2 phone calls at the same time. Double the productivity.
Yeah, it still has not arrived.
I thought you were going to say, and I'm still waiting for it, which would have been great.
Yeah.
I've got a tracking number, but it's all just gibberish.
No, it's all good. Yeah, it's a nice headset. Obviously, pretty reliable. I've had it almost 3 years, and if you're in the market, I recommend it. So there you go.
Well, fantastic. Well, that's our big dumb show for other big dumb apes. How can people find us on internet if they chose to?
All you have to do is, open up your internet and type in AOL keyword Nargcast, and that should do the trick. If it doesn't, you can find us at notarealjob.com, twitter.com/narjcast, NARJ youtube.com/narjcast. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/notarealjob, and it's different because Joel's dumb.
Also, if you just Google Joel Kelly and Chris Van Patten, it should come up,
Yeah,
which is kind of neat.
you should find
and our
us.
photos come up too.
Yeah, it's very nice. We're also on iTunes. We haven't gotten any reviews in a while, but we do love them. Notarealjob.com/iTunes will take you there, and we are on Stitcher as well. Notarealjob.com/Stitcher. I also want to give a little bit of a shout out here to Alexis Santos of the Bin Press podcast. Bin Press is a piece of software that Alexis is involved with. They've got a podcast, and he interviewed me for it. So I believe the episode will be out this week. And if it is out before we put out our episode, I'll put the link in the show notes. Otherwise, stay tuned to the Twitter feed, and I will put it out there. Yeah, it was a fun interview about sort of my history as a web guy, and yeah, it should be pretty good. I had one other thing. What was it? Oh, London. It's happening. It's real. I just booked my flight up to London today. I booked my hotel last night, and I know you're working on the same
It seems that way,
stuff.
yeah.
So we're going to be in London. We don't have an official meetup scheduled yet, but if you are in London and you would like to hang out, please, let us know on Twitter, via email, info@notarealjob.com. We're hoping to get the chance to meet Steve as well. And my brother's going to be in town. I'm hoping to meet up with a lot of Brits while I'm there. And yeah, it'll be a good time, and we would love to see you.
And yeah, submit recommended pubs that we should do a meetup in. Obviously, if we're in jolly old England, which I believe I'm the first person to ever refer to it as that, we'll obviously have to have our meetup in a cool pub. So let us know where that should be.
Yeah, let us know what the cool pubs are versus like the crappy tourist ones. Because I've had my share of time in crappy tourist pubs in London, and I would rather avoid that. So we want to know where the cool spots are.
Yeah.
I'll be staying in Notting Hill. Joel, you're probably going to be closer to the river, but yeah, we'll be around. It'll be fun.
That's the idea, but honestly, I have nothing booked yet, so we will find out.
Sure. So yeah, let us know, and we would love to hang out. We'd love to see you. And there we go. So I think that's it. Did I forget anything?
No, that's definitely it. I think we're done.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And we will talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.